Good evening. Welcome on in to the evening edition of From Day One. We'll pick up right where we left off with morons getting arrested, starting with a Florida murder suspect hit with additional charges after trying to destroy DNA evidence with soda. Better be Dr. Pepper.
Authorities in Volusia County, Florida say that a 35-year-old murder suspect recently landed herself with additional charges after she allegedly made a rather bizarre and brazen attempt to destroy evidence during questioning. The whole thing started at around 1:46 a.m. on July 1st, when police were called with reports of a fire at a residence on the 600 block of Clark Street in Daytona Beach. Officers arrived at the scene to find that a pile of clothes had been set on fire in one of the second-floor bedrooms of the shared residence. However, it was when they extinguished the flames that things really started to get serious. During a search of the property, they found the body of an elderly man lying face down in a blood-spattered room. He had suffered blunt force trauma wounds to the head, as well as stabbing injuries to the torso. After speaking with the property owner, the victim was identified as 79-year-old Michael Sarasoli, one of the tenants who lived there. Michael's cell phone was recovered at the scene, along with another cell phone that had a blood-covered knife on top of it. The landlord said the second phone belonged to the other tenant that lived at the residence, 35-year-old Nicole Max. Roughly 2 hours later, Max was spotted by police walking barefoot and wearing a ripped shirt outside of a fast food restaurant in the neighboring community of Holly Hill. She had blood on her leg, and when officers approached her, Max reportedly dropped a knife and a hammer at their feet. When questioned about what she had been doing that morning, the 35-year-old was reportedly evasive and kept changing her story. At first, she said that she had no connection to Michael or the property where his body was found, at one point saying that she had been homeless for the last 4 years. After admitting that she knew the victim, Max stated that she hadn't seen him that day, before changing again and admitting that Michael was her roommate and that she had been at their shared residence earlier, though claimed that she had only gone up to the second floor to, quote, feed her spiders. After obtaining a warrant to collect DNA evidence from the 35-year-old's body, police reportedly continued their questioning, at which point Max asked for a can of Diet Mountain Dew. Officers obliged, only for Max to play around with the drink for some time before finally attempting to pour it over her body and hair, in what authorities say was an attempt to destroy evidence. While the sucralose in artificial sweeteners has apparently been shown in studies to have the potential to break down the biological components that make up DNA, unfortunately for Max, her alleged attempt was unsuccessful. Samples collected from Max's clothing ended up matching DNA found on Michael's body. It likely wouldn't have mattered either way, though, as Max's DNA was also reportedly found on the handle of the knife that was found at the crime scene. Instead, Max's stunt apparently earned her additional charges of tampering with evidence and resisting arrest with violence, on top of the premeditated first-degree murder charge she was already facing in the case. So far, it appears that the motive behind the murder has not been released.
Interesting. By the way, the next one we're going to stay in Florida. Thief vandalizes Florida's church in Florida, then stays around to baptize himself.
Representatives from Florida's Bay County Sheriff's Office say that a Georgia man is facing numerous charges this week following an equally bizarre and destructive burglary at a local church. The incident began sometime after 8 on the morning of August 4th, when Bay County deputies were called to the Emerald Beach Church of God in the town of Panama City Beach. An employee of the church said that she had fled the property after hearing breaking glass, which she realized was the sound of someone breaking in. Officers reportedly arrived at the scene to find the suspect, later identified as Derek Porter, who was allegedly in the middle of a burglary at the property. After smashing his way inside with a cinder block, authorities say that Porter did roughly $8,000 worth of damage to the church, then loaded several items including a television, a computer, and the church's money bag into his truck. Upon being caught red-handed, Porter apparently stated that he could not remember what had happened during several periods of time while he was in the church, something that might be explained by the methamphetamine that was allegedly found inside his pocket at the scene. However, Porter apparently did remember one thing quite vividly. He said that at one point he had baptized himself in the church's baptistry pool and claimed that something had held his head down in the water. It seems that Porter wasn't the only one who enjoyed the pool, though. Upon being led inside, one of the police dogs who had been brought to the scene immediately made a beeline for the water and jumped in, prompting audible laughs in one of the officers' body cam footage. Porter has now been charged with burglary of an occupied structure, criminal mischief, possession of methamphetamine, and possession of drug paraphernalia in connection with the incident. At the time of the crime, he was reportedly already out on bond for another burglary in Georgia.
Well, next one. Thank God it ain't Florida, but it is Georgia. Hey, one Georgia man arrested after applying for a job. However, he applied for the job at the Arkansas, my apologies, Police Department. Tell us about it.
Authorities in Drew County, Arkansas say that a 24-year-old fugitive is in custody this week after he allegedly sought employment in one of the most questionable places imaginable for someone in his situation. According to reports, the whole thing began earlier this week when officials with the local police department in the town of Monticello received an online application from a man in South Carolina. The man's resume appeared to check all the boxes, so he was invited to come down to Arkansas to discuss the position further, as well as to take part in a physical fitness test. However, upon arriving at the station, officials noticed some discrepancies in the man's physical appearance while conducting his background check. They did a little more digging and soon discovered why. His real name was Justin C. Carter, a 24-year-old fugitive from Georgia who had a nationwide warrant out for his arrest for a parole violation. After making this discovery, Monticello police invited Carter back the following day to the local high school track where they conducted his physical fitness test. As soon as it was over, he was placed under arrest and transported back to Georgia. At the time of this recording, it has not been reported what crime Carter was on parole for at the time of his arrest. It's also unclear why the 24-year-old thought applying for a job with any police department was a good idea, considering he was a wanted man.
Next one, we're going back to Florida as a Florida woman poisons her boyfriend's drink with bug spray. Tell us about that one, please.
Authorities in Volusia County, Florida say that a 29-year-old local woman is facing charges this week after she allegedly served up quite the disturbing nightcap to her live-in boyfriend. According to reports, the incident began in the early morning hours of August 18th when police received a call from a 24-year-old man in the community of DeLeon Springs. The man said that he believed that he had been the victim of a poisoning and that he needed immediate help. When officers arrived at the scene, they encountered the 24-year-old, who was so ill he could barely explain what happened. He said that he had been vomiting for at least the past 30 minutes and had barely been able to call for help. Despite this, before being rushed off for treatment, the man somehow managed to give police a basic overview of what had happened. The 24-year-old stated that a short time earlier, he had received a call from his 29-year-old girlfriend, Veronica Klein, who had been out drinking at a local bar. She asked him to make some cocktails so that they could continue drinking together when she got home. While things initially went smoothly, they soon went off the rails when Klein took over making the drinks. Not long after, the 24-year-old began to feel ill and began vomiting uncontrollably. It was at this point that Klein allegedly revealed she had spiked at least 2 of his beverages with Raid insect poison in an attempt to kill him. Even more disturbing, Klein allegedly said she planned to do the same thing to their 1-year-old child. The 24-year-old was apparently able to back up what he said by providing an audio recording of Klein during which she admitted to poisoning him. While Klein had reportedly fled the residence in the time it took her boyfriend to call 911, luckily for authorities, she didn't get very far. A police canine was ultimately able to find her hiding in some bushes, and she was placed under arrest and charged with a felony count of poisoning. According to reports, Klein has previous criminal convictions, 2 of which involved the, quote, improper exhibition of a weapon.
Alrighty, thank God we're getting out of Florida. I know Florida's got the sunshine law, it's easy to report, but I like to believe that there's more dumb crime than just Florida. So we go to Indiana next. Indiana man is being busted by the cops for doing a DUI. However, he did the DUI in a little kid's toy Jeep. Really? Tell us about it.
Indiana state troopers apparently wanted to send the message that they aren't messing around when it comes to impaired driving, after they arrested and charged a local man this week who was behind the wheel of a children's toy. According to reports, it all started around 9 p.m. on August 23rd, when a state police trooper spotted the 51-year-old suspect, John McKee, driving a blue Power Wheels Jeep on North 2nd Street in Vincennes Township. Though McKee was apparently pulled over originally because he was driving the toy Jeep on the road with no lights or reflectors in the dark, things escalated when the trooper noticed some signs that the 51-year-old might be intoxicated. He was asked to perform a roadside sobriety test, which he allegedly failed. After being taken to a nearby hospital, it was reportedly determined that McKee was under the influence of both marijuana and methamphetamine, and he was placed under arrest. He is now facing a felony charge of operating a vehicle while intoxicated with a prior conviction. The Power Wheels Jeep, meanwhile, which reportedly has a maximum speed of 5 miles per hour, was picked up by a local towing company.
Alrighty. Oh, this one's close to home. Alleged Nebraskan drunk driver arrested after unwittingly calling 911 on himself.
Representatives from Nebraska's Lancaster County Sheriff's Office are reminding the public of the dangers of drinking and driving this week after they released body cam footage from a DUI stop earlier this year that was as unbelievably terrifying as it was unbelievably stupid. According to reports, it all started one night back in March when the sheriff's office received a 911 call from a man who said that he needed to report some dangerous driving. He said he was traveling down a section of Highway 77 in Lancaster County and had just had an extremely close call with a truck, which he claimed was traveling in the wrong direction and had nearly run him off the road. Though the man appeared genuinely rattled by what had happened on the phone, what he didn't realize was that the dangerous driving he was reporting was in fact his own. You see, he was the one on the wrong side of the road. He just didn't know it because he was drunk. Thanks to the very accurate coordinates that the man was able to provide about his location, he was quickly spotted by a Lancaster sheriff's deputy who pulled him over. It was only at this point that the driver apparently started to piece together what had actually happened. When asked if he knew why he'd been pulled over, the man replied, quote, "Yeah, because I was on the wrong side of the road." He tried to claim that it was because he had missed an exit. Understandably, this explanation did not cut it, especially when the driver was found to have a blood alcohol content of twice the legal limit. After being arrested, the man admitted that he had essentially called 911 on himself, leading to this ridiculous exchange.
Were you the one that called in?
Yep.
You were?
Yeah, because I thought somebody was on the wrong side of the road, bro.
But it turned out it was you.
Yep, look at dumb.
At the time of this recording, the driver's name has not been released.
Okay, we're going back to Florida. Florida man allegedly attacks former girlfriend for mocking his penis size. Spooky.
Authorities in Indian River County, Florida say that a man is in custody this week after he allegedly broke into his ex-girlfriend's house and attacked her because she mocked the size of his penis. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the night of August 28th when the 42-year-old victim was talking to the suspect, 30-year-old Rashad McGriff, over text. At some point during this exchange, the victim reportedly sent McGriff a photo of another man's genitalia, captioning it with a taunting message saying that he had a small penis. Instead of replying with his own insult or simply ignoring the message altogether, police say that at around midnight, McGriff drove to his ex-girlfriend's house in the city of Vero Beach. After breaking in, he allegedly went into her bedroom where she was sleeping and proceeded to punch her in the face and choke her. At one point, the 42-year-old claims he also screamed at her, quote, "I'll kill you, bitch." Following the attack, McGriff reportedly fled the residence, at which point the victim called 911. He was arrested later that day. According to reports, the 30-year-old is now facing burglary and battery charges in connection with the penis-size-related assault. It's expected that he will also face further charges for a parole violation in connection with a firearms possession offense.
Arizona 10-year-old caught driving speeding car while his dad was drunk sitting in the passenger seat. Don't make these up.
Authorities in Phoenix, Arizona say that a 49-year-old local man is in serious trouble this week after he allowed his young son to get behind the wheel of his pickup truck while he allegedly accompanied him as a drunken passenger. According to reports, the incident began at around 3:40 p.m. on September 2nd when a trooper with the Arizona Department of Public Safety spotted a red pickup truck driving dangerously on State Route 101. Not only was the vehicle speeding, but it was recklessly changing lanes, a situation that could have easily led to a crash. The trooper began pursuing the truck, leading to a chase that lasted for approximately 3 minutes until the vehicle pulled over near the 7th Street off-ramp. That's when the trooper apparently discovered that the driver was a 10-year-old boy. It turned out that the boy wasn't alone, though. For some inexplicable reason, the boy's 49-year-old father, Alvaro Ovando Alvarez, had not only allegedly sanctioned the trip, but had come along as a passenger. I mean, he was apparently drunk, so that probably played a role. But if you ask me, that's pretty wild even for a drunk decision.
Yeah,
Anyway, Alvarez was arrested and has now been charged with aggravated DUI, child abuse and endangerment, possession of an open container of alcohol, and unlawfully permitting a minor to drive. The boy, meanwhile, is not facing legal consequences because, he's 10, and it's not his fault his dad's an idiot.
Got one more? Okay. Canadian man allegedly swims across the Canadian border to Michigan, then steals handgun from the pawn shop. Really? Let's hear about the Canuck.
Authorities in Macomb County, Michigan say that a Canadian man is in serious trouble this week after he illegally crossed the border in fairly bizarre fashion and then allegedly tried to steal a gun from a local pawn shop. According to reports, the whole thing started recently when Ontario resident 24-year-old Jeremy James Wallace had his guns confiscated due to an unspecified firearms offense. Unable to legally purchase additional weapons, though apparently determined to skirt the ban, it was at this point that he came up with a plan. In the early morning hours of September 6th, Wallace allegedly put on a wetsuit and flippers and swam across the St. Clair River from the village of Sombra, Ontario, into Michigan. Once there, he traveled roughly 12 miles to the Metro Pawn and Gun store in the village of New Haven, where he posed as a customer. After having employees at the pawn shop bring him out a .22 caliber handgun to look at, Wallace apparently inquired about a second firearm. When the employee who was speaking with him went to get the weapon, Wallace allegedly grabbed the first gun off the counter along with 2 empty magazines and fled. Unfortunately for Wallace, he didn't make it very far before police arrived at the scene. They reportedly witnessed him running around the back of the pawn shop and into a wooded area where he was tracked down and arrested. Upon being taken into custody, Wallace reportedly shared the details of his scheme. He told them about the wetsuit, the flippers, and the flotation device he'd used to cross the river, and was also allegedly in possession of a pistol crossbow, some ammunition, and a hammer. He said he'd brought the additional tools in case the pawn shop was closed when he got there and he needed to break in. Authorities say that Wallace is now facing multiple charges, including improper entry by an alien, being an alien in possession of a firearm and ammunition, and possession of a stolen firearm. Before we wrap up,
Well, we definitely thank you for your time over there. We definitely appreciate you for the content. Now, if this is something you guys like us to do, I am willing to make Sundays dumb, dumb people night. Just let us know below, and depending on what everyone says, is what we'll do going forward. Make it every Sunday, for instance. Till then, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another, and release the Krakens as we march along this evening and every evening here from day one.